Everybody, welcome to the tens of thousands of you, maybe hundreds of thousands, watching around the world on the multiple platforms. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. I have a packed show for you today. So much information to get out to you. Two amazing guests coming up in this hour. This first guest, I have interviewed him once before, but it was many years ago. I believe while he was running for Congress, and it is pertaining to a fight that many of you knew about, many of you followed, but unfortunately, many of us have stopped following it. But that does not mean the fight doesn't continue. That is the fight in Standing Rock, the fight against the DAPL, the Dakota Access Pipeline. And for this opening segment, I'm excited to learn what goes on all those fronts and how that fight is continuing. And I am joined by Chase Iron Eyes. Hello.
Very good to see you, sir.
Good to see you again. It's been a few years.
It's flew right by. It seems like just yesterday we were in the thick of it, and I want to thank you for covering important issues just with no hesitation. Thank you very much for doing that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I am proud to say that I think I was definitely one of the earlier ones with a national show talking about the Standing Rock fight. I remember it was before so many people went out there from outside, but I remember there was the youth ran from the Dakotas all the way to Washington, D.C. Towards the beginning of that fight, and I remember covering that story. And obviously, in many ways, it didn't go the way we wanted, but I was wondering if we can just start. I know it's been at least a couple of years since a lot of people have kind of stuck their head into this information. If you could remind everyone of what this fight is about.
Well, thank you for that. So I grew up on the Standing Rock Nation, or the Standing Rock Indian Reservation, which is home to the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. But I also have roots on the Pine Ridge Reservation, the Oglala Lakota Nation. And I believe it was my wife, Dr. Sarah Jumping Eagle, who reached out to your show, who reached out to Lee Camp. She's a big fan. And she said, hey, there's this Dakota Access Pipeline issue, and it involves a lot, right? Indigenous nations, indigenous peoples have signed treaties with the United States, with Canada, all over the English thinking universe, Australia, New Zealand. We signed treaties with these fledgling colonies who now call themselves Americans or Canadians. And when we signed these treaties, we agreed to defend and protect each other, to defend and protect each other's sovereignty and our rights to live by our own laws. And of course, the treaties were violated almost before the ink dried on them. We're talking in 1868. And this land where the pipeline ended up being aggressively and in violation of international law, in violation of the Fort Laramie Treaty, which we have with the United States, and even in violation of some of their own federal laws. They moved this pipeline from a place, the capital city of North Dakota, Bismarck, North Dakota, where we were living 2 years prior to the fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline. Well, that city is 90% white American, 90% European American.
Right.
And the Army Corps, I mean, they didn't have to lift a finger. And the Army Corps moved this entire 570,000 barrel pipeline per day from north of Bismarck, North Dakota, upstream from Bismarck, Mandan, North Dakota, right by the Indian reservation where we were living at the time. And so I was in the very first meeting with two powerful women who are no longer here, and that is LaDonna Brave Bull Ellard and Joy Braun. And that was the beginning of Sacred Stone Camp. At the time, I was the democratically endorsed candidate for the lone congressional seat in the state of North Dakota.
Yeah.
And there was a storm brewing. There's a fight brewing. And we didn't know, how are we, an impoverished and delegitimized Indian tribe, going to stand up against the forces of big extraction, right? Too big to fail extraction. Like these are conglomerates. These are monsters. And sometimes they're bad actors, as you catch a lot of time in Western corporate extractive capitalism. Like, they're trying to do things on the cheap. The cheaper they can do it, the better. And so that was the beginning of the resistance camp, the Sacred Stone Camp, April 1st, 2016. I was on my way to my congressional campaign office, and I ran into the caravan of hundreds of horseback riders and people in vehicles, people walking, people running. And it was a beautiful day. But now thinking back, that's what, 7 years ago? It's
Crazy.
it's like it's literally like that. And we've been traumatized. We've been through a lot. Like this pipeline, there was almost 1,000 people arrested over the course of the 7 months that we maintained these peaceful, unarmed, prayerful resistance camps. And scores of thousands of people cycled through there, came in person. I mean, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, there's famous video of her in what was called the Dome at the protest camps in Standing Rock. And people were witnessing the brutalities that were being inflicted on unarmed water protectors by a corporate militarized state. At some point, the private sector, the private security sector became involved, and the tone of the entire resistance changed. Now there's documentaries out there. Oyate is out there. That's the name of a documentary. The media has covered this thing, but the listeners may not have had a chance to tap back into exactly what is happening. The pipeline is there. We consider it an act of international aggression and trespass because it is in our territory, and it was done without our free, prior, and informed consent, which we have a right to as indigenous nations. It was done in violation of federal law, the National Environmental Policy Act. Just only now is there a full EIS being ordered. If you recall, there's many poignant moments of that struggle. September 3rd, vicious, deadly attack dogs were used on water protectors, women and children.
Yeah,
And that was
that's probably one of the moments that people remember most. Was literally attack dogs sent in by police against completely unarmed, peaceful protesters. There's also images that speak 1,000 words of, people sitting quietly in prayer circles or other manner, and they're surrounded by militarized police. It's just crazy. Yeah.
It was a pivotal moment. We were involved from the beginning of the camps, and after the dog attacks, we witnessed an explosion in our numbers, in the amount of people who saw that. And symbologically or archetypally, Christopher Columbus was using those kinds of attack dogs on indigenous peoples. And here we are in 2016 seeing the exact same thing. And so, and then there was the October 27th, the largest arrest day. There was November 20th, that's Backwater Bridge, when the water cannons were used to spray people in sub-zero temperatures. So there was a lot of brutality that was inflicted that Morton County has not been held accountable for yet. The Tiger Swan, the private military contractors who were there doing battle briefings every morning, they've never been held accountable yet. But the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe and the Oglala Sioux Tribe and the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe have maintained the fight in the courts since 2016. Since 2016 and since the end of the camp, the fight has shifted into the courtroom, and the Army Corps of Engineers has been compelled to, they've been ordered to, by a federal court, to issue a full environmental impact statement. That's all we've ever seemed to want when dealing with the United States or the Army Corps, is for them to follow their own laws in dealing with tribal nations. And so
because
that's where
legally they're supposed to do that. They're supposed to have an environmental impact statement that can impact that then tells whether they can build these things.
Yes, and some would argue that it's designed to mitigate against an already presupposed, completion of a project. But when it comes to tribal nations, we have unceded territorial rights. We have hunting and fishing rights that have not been accounted for. Sacred sites. I mean, with Energy Transfer Partners, the reason why the dog attacks happen is because very quickly, Tim Mintz, who was the first tribal historic preservation officer in the nation for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, in 1992, he achieved that post, a historic post. He was the expert witness in the lawsuit that Standing Rock was maintaining against the Army Corps of Engineers. And September 2nd, Tim Mintz, along with others, filed pleadings which identified very sensitive sacred sites, burial sites, vision quest sites, culturally sensitive sites. And within 24 hours of that filing, Energy Transfer Partners attorneys leaked that to the company, and they moved all of their heavy equipment more than 20 miles to begin destroying those culturally sensitive sites and those properties to make it a moot point. That's what caused September 3rd. And this company has one of the most abhorrent records for oil spills. We are dealing with a bad actor here. And now the Army Corps of Engineers, like in the beginning, they did a preliminary, or it's called an environmental assessment. It's not a full EIS, but the company that they hired to do that is called Energy Resource Management. And they are a company that is textbook conflicted out of it. They have a conflict of interest because they are a member of the American Petroleum Institute, and they signed on to amicus briefs that opposed the Standing Rock Sioux tribe's legal position. So they're trying to cook the books from within. And now with this new EIS that they've issued a draft EIS, and they're asking for public comment. And that's what we want your listeners to go to stand.
Looks like Chase Ironized internet connection just cut out.
They're putting 5 alternatives on the table.
He's back. Chase, you actually, right as you were telling people which website to go to, your internet feed cut out. So if you could just tell them again what they should be doing.
Thank you very much. Yes, go to standingrock.org and lakotalaw.org. There you'll find the latest information about these public hearings, wherein they're going to take information, public comment about the 5 alternatives that they've offered. And one of their alternatives is simply to double the flow of oil from 570,000 barrels per day to 1.1 million barrels per day. And as the Sioux Nation, we are saying that not only do we have free, prior, and informed consent, but according to the treaties, when you want to build infrastructure, whether it's railroads, bridges, pipelines, power lines, when you build infrastructure through our territory, through our country, through our nation, the Sioux Nation, we have to be paid for that. There needs to be transfer fees. If some European country wants to put a gas pipeline through a different European country, they're going to pay that country off of every unit that is flowing through there. So in our eyes, this is a trespass. It is not only a nuisance, it's an act of aggression, and we're still fighting to be made whole.
And since so the DAPL has been put in and is running, and as far as I last heard, and every pipeline leaks. I always stress that when we're having these pipeline fights around the country, every single pipeline would leaks. There are 1,000 leaks a year. Most of them are relatively small, but many of them are not. But even the small ones can have a horrifying impact to the land and the water. And there's already been leaks in Dakota Access Pipeline, correct?
The pipeline has leaked. Energy Transfer Partners has the most leaks of any company out there that we could find. In fact, they've had so many leaks that the United States government has prohibited them from even achieving small supply contracts. Like they've been suspended right now. And speaking about oil spills, yes, it has leaked. 500, and the leak detection software that is being used only detects above 1%. So this is a giant pipeline. This is 570,000 barrels. So 5,000 barrels could spill, and we might not even know about it. This thing is so far underground. And because of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, we don't have the financial wherewithal. The Sioux Nation, the Pine Ridge Reservation, we don't have the financial wherewithal to respond accordingly to a very hazardous, dangerous worst case discharge scenario that I know that our emergency management directors, like on the Standing Rock Nation, he's a good friend, a good mentor. His name is Elliot Ward. He's been the emergency manager. Guys like Tim Mintz, people like Chairwoman Janet Elkhire, they're doing their level best to be ready for a worst case scenario discharge. Meanwhile, the Army Corps of Engineers is saying, hey, if the worst case happens, we're going to truck in 18 million bottles of water. And by the way, oil is very buoyant, so it floats to the surface. It's going to be easy for us to deal with. Lee, if you were to go out to our river today, the Missouri River, you cannot even get to it. It's so low. The Army Corps manages the Missouri River in a way that disadvantages the Sioux Nation.
Wow. Yeah, I always love that lie they say that, oh, it's if there is a spill, we can clean it up. It's impossible to clean up oil in water, and they make a big show of it. I call it like cleanup theater or something. They go down there in suits and they have literally paper towels sometimes, and it's just a show to pretend they're cleaning it up.
We better not have Biden out there throwing paper towels at us. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can stomach that.
Exactly. Are the representatives, the political representatives in North Dakota, do they even pay attention to these concerns anymore? Or are they just done with it?
They, it's a crazy life works crazy like that. The guy that I was running against, his name is Kevin Kramer. He's now a senator. He went from the lone Congress rep to he is now the senator, one of the senators of the state of North Dakota. And Kelly Armstrong is the other, he's the congressional rep. But in the state of North Dakota's constitutions, or in their constitution, in their governing document, they espouse and they encourage the development of fossil fuels, the extractive development of fossil fuels, whether that's mining or whether that's coal or any time that a state has it enshrined in their constitution that they are beholden to big oil, they're beholden to big extraction. You can bet that they're going to act in accordance with that lobby and with those demands. So Kevin Kramer has been making overtures. He's been reaching out to the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. He's been reaching out, trying to do other things to kind of make up for the fact that they want oil flow. Not only do they want oil flowing through Dakota Access Pipeline, they want to double the amount of oil that flows through there every day without any other considerations. I mean, in the best case scenario, in according to North Dakota's leadership's eyes, they want to do more studies, take into account our hunting and fishing, our subsistence hunting and fishing that's going to be dramatically impacted, and try to mitigate through the paperwork process the impact it's going to have on us. So we're not getting any kind of indication from the state of North Dakota or the state of South Dakota, for that matter, that they care at all about America's drinking water, about the Sioux Nation's drinking water. 18 million people depend on the integrity of the Missouri River, and we're going to keep fighting. We have no choice, because we recognize the existential crisis really that this country is engaged in right now. There's a lot going on in the world, and I want to just take a special moment to recognize the work you're doing, the work we're trying to do to give voice to the atrocities that are happening in the Middle East right now. It's a very complex matter, and I appreciate people's patience and not jumping to form your opinion just based on the breadth of an Instagram post or a Snapchat video. Like, please, we have to recognize each other's humanity in that instance, and in this case with tribal nations vis-a-vis Americans and the United States. Yeah,
definitely. And I appreciate you saying that. I don't want to use up any more of your time, but I truly appreciate you having here. We didn't even mention, of course, that we have to stop fossil fuels because of climate crisis, which also impacts our water and our land and our air and everything. But so one more time, if people want to help or try and force the hand of those environmental impact statements, that standingrock.org is where they can get that info, right?
Yes, sir. Standingrock.org and lakotalaw.org has information. continue to seek your peace, brother, and all your listeners. You know, keep moving.
Thank you again. All right. Truly appreciate having Chase Iron Eyes on here. Hope he comes back soon. And of course, that fight continues